Something about Hoda Kotb never started with fame. It started with identity confusion, movement, and the feeling of never fully belonging anywhere. Long before millions knew her as a calm, smiling presence on morning television, she was a child learning how to exist between cultures, expectations, and constantly changing environments. Born in Norman, Oklahoma, Hoda was the daughter of Egyptian parents who carried their own culture, language, and traditions into American life. Inside her home, everything felt rooted in Egypt. Outside, everything felt like America was asking her to fit into a shape that never fully matched who she was. That quiet tension followed her everywhere. She was never fully this or that. She was something in between. Her childhood wasn't stable either. She spent parts of her early life moving between countries, including Egypt and Nigeria, before eventually settling in the United States. For a child, that kind of life doesn't just mean travel. It means constantly starting over. New schools, new faces, new rules, new versions of yourself that you have to build again and again just to survive socially. But something interesting happened during those years. Instead of shrinking, she adapted. She learned how to read rooms quickly, how to speak in ways people would accept, how to adjust her personality depending on the environment. At the time, it was survival. Later, it became her greatest professional skill. By the time she reached high school in Virginia, she still didn't fully feel like she belonged anywhere. But instead of isolating her, that uncertainty pushed her toward communication. She started leaning into speaking, connecting, and expressing herself in ways that made people notice her presence instead of questioning it. That path eventually led her to Virginia Tech, where she studied broadcast journalism. And something important happened there. She didn't just study journalism, she committed to it. Not as a dream, but as a direction. And almost immediately after graduating in 1986, she entered the real world of journalism. Not national television, not fame, local news. Her first jobs were in small markets where everything was chaos behind the scenes. She worked in places like Mississippi, Illinois, and Florida, doing everything from writing stories to reporting to anchoring. There was no glamour, no spotlight, just pressure, repetition, and exhaustion. But this phase shaped her more than anything else. Because in local news, you don't get the luxury of control. A story can break at any moment. Equipment can fail. Weather can destroy your schedule. You learn to stay calm when everything is falling apart around you. And Hoda didn't just survive it, she absorbed it. The biggest test came during her time at WWL-TV in New Orleans. Covering crime, hurricanes, and human tragedy in New Orleans changed her understanding of journalism completely. This wasn't storytelling from a distance. This was reporting from inside real suffering, standing in front of destruction, talking to people whose lives had just been permanently altered. It hardened her emotionally, but it also shaped her empathy. By the time NBC noticed her, she wasn't inexperienced. She was built through pressure, repetition, and emotional exposure that most people never experience in their careers. In 1998, she joined NBC as a correspondent on Dateline. And now, for the first time, she entered national television. But even then, the work wasn't light. She covered international stories across Africa and the Middle East, and reported on major global events that required both courage and emotional control. One assignment reportedly involved high-risk conditions where being caught could have serious consequences. This was not the version of Hoda people would later see smiling on morning TV. This was someone who had already lived through fear, uncertainty, and emotional weight long before becoming a household name. And then came one of the defining events that changed her forever. Hurricane Katrina. When Hurricane Katrina struck, it wasn't just another assignment for Hoda Kotb. It was personal. She had lived in New Orleans. She knew the streets, the people, and the emotional rhythm of the city. So when devastation hit, she wasn't just reporting a story. She was watching a place she cared about collapse in real time. And in the middle of that chaos, something happened that revealed who she really was. She witnessed a mother being separated from her baby during evacuation efforts. Her instinct wasn't professional distance. It was human reaction. She wanted to step in, help, stop it, change it. But journalism demanded something else. Her producer had to pull her back into reporter mode. That conflict, human emotion versus professional duty, stayed with her. Because underneath the calm delivery viewers later saw on TV, there was someone deeply affected by the suffering she had witnessed for years. Then life hit her personally. In 2007, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. The diagnosis came as a shock because she believed she was healthy. She exercised. She worked. She lived normally. But suddenly, her body revealed something dangerous hiding beneath the surface. Treatment followed immediately. Surgery, reconstruction, and long recovery. It was physically brutal. She later described it like being hit by a truck. Movement hurt. Recovery was exhausting. And while she was going through this, her marriage was also falling apart. Her relationship ended during the same period she was fighting cancer, creating a double collapse, physical and emotional at once. And then came another hidden loss, the realization that she would not be able to have biological children after treatment. That grief was not public, but it was permanent. Still, something unexpected happened after this darkest period of her life. Instead of disappearing, her career transformed. She moved into the fourth hour of the Today Show, a space that was considered lighter and less serious. But instead of treating it as a downgrade, she turned it into something completely new. Then came the partnership with Kathie Lee Gifford. The chemistry was immediate and unpredictable. Two very different personalities created something authentic, messy, and deeply human. It didn't feel like polished television. Felt like conversation. Real, unfiltered, imperfect conversation. That authenticity changed morning television. And Hoda became not just a journalist, but a personality people trusted. Behind that growing success, her personal life slowly rebuilt too. She later entered a long relationship with Joel Schiffman, and eventually, something she once thought impossible happened. She became a mother. In 2017, she adopted her daughter Haley Joy, followed later by Hope Catherine. For someone who had once believed motherhood was no longer possible, this wasn't just happiness. It was restoration. And for a moment, her life looked complete. But life rarely stays still. By the time Hoda Kotb reached her 50s, her life looked stable from the outside. A successful career, family, a respected position in morning television. But behind the scenes, everything was shifting again. In 2023, she suddenly disappeared from the Today Show. Viewers didn't know why at first. But behind the scenes, her daughter Hope had been hospitalized and diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. That moment changed everything about how her life functioned. Because type 1 diabetes is not temporary. It is constant management, night monitoring, blood sugar checks, insulin tracking, a never-ending responsibility that doesn't pause for work schedules. And morning television starts before dawn. At the same time, another pressure was growing quietly. The television industry itself was changing. Streaming platforms, digital media, and YouTube had shifted audience attention away from traditional broadcast TV. And networks were beginning to rethink massive salaries for legacy anchors. Reports suggested Hoda was earning over $20 million annually. But in a changing media landscape, that kind of number became harder for networks to justify. So suddenly, her position wasn't just emotional. It was structural. Then came another turning point, turning 60. She has openly said that this milestone changed how she viewed time. It wasn't about slowing down. It was about choosing what matters next. After surviving cancer, career pressure, and family responsibility, the question became simple. How much time do I want to give to this life, and what do I want back from it? So in 2024, she made her decision. After 26 years at NBC, she announced her departure from Today. And it didn't feel like failure. It didn't feel like scandal. Felt like choice. A controlled exit. On her own terms. Not because she had to leave, but because she finally decided she could. And that is why her story resonates. Because it was never about fame. It was about endurance. And knowing when to walk away while still holding your own strength.